Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
Welcome to Night After Night, a podcast about 8 seasons in a row. I am Lisa Fernandes, and this is
Christopher Jayawardena.
And we will be reviewing the entirety of Laverne and Shirley, from the first season to the 8th season, perhaps some reunion specials, perhaps the porn parody, God help us.
No.
But we will be getting through the entire series, and we will be doing it with aplomb and vigor, with any luck. And this is our first episode, and you're welcome to it.
Yeah, it's good to be here. So this is pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to all this.
Yeah. As well, you have absolutely no experience with the show. You came into this blind to a degree.
To a degree, yeah.
I have been a fan of the show since I was literally 3 years old.
Since you were a wee little child, a wee little adorable child.
I was very, very tiny. The show ended when I was 4. I have very, 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 very few tiny memories of being very, very tiny and watching the show. And I watched it a lot in syndication when I was older. My mother used to tape copies of the show off of syndicated television, and I used to watch them when I would come home from school. So this is an important show to me. Yeah, this is a formative show for me, so I will be a bit of a guiding voice as we move along and go from the high points to season 8. But season 8 for now, but it's coming, children. It's coming. Beware.
I continue hearing about this season 8, this fabled legend, and and then you do that, and I got very nervous. I'm stuck here, aren't I?
Season 8 is where comedy goes to die, and that's all anybody needs to know right now. That's all anyone needs to know right now.
All right.
3 good episodes. We'll give really generous. We'll give them 3 good episodes, and then everything else happens. And it happens, and they can't take it back.
Oh, jeez.
They cannot take it back.
So I guess we need to start at the beginning, though, right? Because we're just getting
beginning, which is a very good place to start.
Oh.
But first, let's talk a little bit about the history of the show. For once upon a time, in a magical land called Hollywood, there lived a producer named Gary Marshall. Gary was already a pretty successful producer when Laverne and Shirley was conceived. He was a multi-year veteran of comedy writing, had produced the Jack Klugman, Tony Randall version of The Odd Couple, and had created Happy Days, which was in its 3rd season and a mega blockbuster for ABC. That show was so successful that the network asked Marshall to create a second program to be partnered with it and assume the post-Happy Days 8:30 p.m. Tuesday time slot. Well, Gary was in luck. He'd introduced 2 characters who had plenty of spin-off potential and won favor with the show's fans during a string of appearances during Happy Days' 3rd season. Those characters were Laverne DeFazio and Shirley Feeney, played respectively by Gary's sister Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams, real-life friends who had known and worked with one another before the show. Laverne and Shirley were initially 2 rough-and-tumble gals from the wrong side of the tracks, who were both presumably more than friends with the Fonz. Debuting during the episode A Date with Fonzie, which Fonzie set Richie Cunningham up with Shirley and caused a domestic disaster, both girls proceeded to pop up again in the episodes Football Frolics and Fonzie the Superstar. First creative orders of business was transforming these 2 women from toughies to America's working-class sweethearts. After all, in their initial incarnations, Laverne and Shirley were both the sort of girls who brawled with one another in the ladies' room between trying to seduce their teenage dates, and offering to punch Potsy and Ralph Malph in the face for spying on them. In those It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia mid-Archie Bunker days, there wasn't a room for a couple of good-time girls to invade the family hour.
Yeah.
And so Laverne and Shirley's personalities were tweaked for the test pilots. Laverne would become the cynical one, ready to settle for a little fun instead of aiming higher, but not quite that friendly. While innocent version of Shirley harbored dreams of leaving their working-class roots behind for suburbia and marriage to a doctor. In Penny Marshall's own words, the girls regrew their hymens. This is a direct quote. I will find that video and attach it in the information. This is a direct quote.
Oh, my God.
While Penny was a lock for Laverne from the beginning, Cindy Williams showed some resistance to sign on for the role of Shirley, with varied and inconsistent reasons being given by herself, Gary Marshall, and Penny in their autobiographies as to why she initially rejected the role. All versions of the story remain consistent on one fact. By the time she told her agent, she changed her mind and wanted to do the pilot, or if you listen to Michael Eisner's version, was talking to doing the role. Yes, Michael Eisner is involved in the show.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh no, he's actually the hero of the story.
Oh, wow.
We're coming up on that. He's the hero of the story. A test film running roughly 7 minutes long had already been filmed for the network in a redressed version of Fonzie's Happy Days apartment set. The role of Shirley had been recast with actress Liberty Williams, with whom Marshall had okay chemistry but didn't have magic. These are the words of Michael Eisner here. Cindy did a screen test with Penny the evening after the Liberty Williams tests were shot, and those scenes captured lightning in a bottle. Again, I'm quoting Eisner here. ABC executives wanted to see both versions of the scene, but Eisner, who flew to New York with the test films in hand, hid Liberty Williams' test in a closet on the 35th floor of the building, of the ABC's executive building, and told Fred Silverman and the other executives in charge that he'd lost the footage, in quote unquote.
I have to interrupt with just a question here. Just a real quick question. Do you figure he was in the elevator trying to decide which floor and which closet he was going to stuff this in?
Yeah, I can actually picture him doing this.
He's just looking at the elevator. He's like, okay, it's like 32. No, that's a little too low. Like,
18,
21. No.
Under the bulk, under the heaviest thing you could find. By the way, the heaviest thing you could find, so it'll never be found again. By the way, the Liberty Williams test footage has never resurfaced. He thinks it might still be in that building, and that building is currently part of MIT. So it's out there. Try the 35th floor, see if you can find it. Give us back our television history, kids.
Oh my gosh.
So ABC Brass approved of the Cindy and Penny pairing. Cindy officially signed on to play Shirley. With the series 2 leads set in stone, the show was picked up and set to air as a mid-season replacement. All of the principals came to the show in very different ways. Michael McKean and David L. Lander met at Carnegie Mellon University as students and became close friends. Together they came up with the characters of Leonard Kosnowski and Anthony Squigliano, two foul-mouthed meathead greasers from New Jersey whose personalities were based on a certain breed of gentleman they went to school with. According to David, the characters were created when they were, in quote, smoking their own youthful indiscretions, unquote. Well, Michael has never confirmed this, by the way. He has not. So this is. I will also attach that video of that quote.
Okay.
I love that line.
I mean, you would figure, at some point he's got to. It's like, okay, we were doing that. We were doing that while.
Trying to see it.
Yeah, I mean, when you see these characters, I mean, you got to figure something was definitely being imbibed at that point.
The bulk and skull of the 70s, I think, is what you said the first time we watched the pilots.
I think, because
kind of there.
Yeah. As probably is pretty evident, I'm a 90s kid, so there's going to be a lot of 90s analogs I will discover.
Slightly older than you, just slightly, just
a
slightly,
just a teeny bit, just teeny
bit, just a little creaky and ancient. Squiggy was originally a separate character who existed in the universe they inhabited, but was not Squiggy himself. That makes sense, and it will. Trust me, kids, it will. Both guys were friends with Rob Reiner and Penny Marshall, and Penny had seen them perform what Michael once called their least commercial characters while doing stand-up as part of the improvisational group The Credibility Gap with Harry Shearer. Michael said in an interview with the Washington Post that their first gig involved insulting the audience and making obscene gestures to the women there. First time they ever did the boys, that's what happened.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's definitely a more realistic take on those types of scumbags.
Yeah. You can kind of picture the kind of gestures they were making to the women, is all I'm going to say. I could picture two in particular very clearly. Two specifically.
Two specifically. But, the thing is, the more I live, the more I realize there are a lot of hand gestures that as soon as you see them, it's like, oh yes, I get that.
Yeah. But specifically towards women, there's a certain number of gestures. That's all I'm gonna say. Specifically towards women, I'm like picturing this in my head. So I picture it very clearly.
Yeah.
When ABC bought Laverne and Shirley, it was with the knowledge that, aside from the Laverne and Shirley characters, Frank DeFazio and Eddie Mecca's Carmine Grusa, they didn't have any supporting players in place. Knowing this, Penny threw a party to celebrate the sale of the show and invited Michael and David to it, with the express purpose of them performing there. With the show's producers in attendance, Reiner told Michael and David to do those guys, do Lenny and Anthony. Michael and David both say that they don't recall the routine they performed for roughly 15 minutes, beyond the fact that it was very filthy and involved one of the guys wanting to go to butler school. When it was over, Lowell Gantz and Mark Rothman, the executive producers in attendance, convened, wondering aloud one question: can they be funny and clean? To find out, David, Michael, and Harry Shearer were hired as apprentice writers. Penny Marshall, according to Michael, told David and himself to look for a place to maybe get your characters in there. When the pilot script turned out to have a plot hole in it, Michael and David probably wrote Lenny and Squiggy into the society party to patch it, and the rest is history. Along the way, Squiggy's ethnicity was changed, as between Carmine and the DeFazio clan, Marshall felt that the cast was disproportionately Italian. Thus, Anthony became Andy, a German Lutheran, full name Andrew Squiggy Squigman, no middle initial. The rest of our main players came from Marshall's stock of Fruca players. Paul Foster, who would play Laverne's father, Frank, was well-known face on the comedy circuit and appeared on the first version of The Odd Couple. And Eddie Mecca, Carmine Ragusa, would become a major player in Marshall's stock of actors. He essayed the role of Joey DeLuca in the one-season wonder quasi-Happy Days and Laverne Shirley spin-off Blansky's Beauties while playing Carmine at the same time, which is a pretty interesting feat. Oh, yeah. He would go back and forth. Joey is apparently Carmine's cousin within the context of Blansky's Beauties. Blansky's Beauties, by the way, nobody can find it. And there is a crossover episode. So if you're out there, kids, and if you have a copy of that episode, please put it on YouTube. We're missing chunks of show history out there, and nobody wants to release it officially. They released Joni Loves Chachi on DVD. Joni Loves Chachi is on DVD and not this. Disaster Joni Loves Chachi wasn't. I just wonder why this doesn't exist on DVD legally.
I mean, hey, listen. I follow Severn Films and the stuff that they release. It doesn't surprise me one bit.
No. It all depends. It all depends on luck sometimes, licensing. The DVD release of this show was incredibly complicated and strained by the fact that they had to clear so many music rights. And when we get to season 2, you're going to enjoy those musical substitutions. Season 1 on DVD is thankfully void of this problem. Most of the songs are cleared, so most of it is not horrendously why is the dialogue cutting in and out? Why is the dialogue cutting in and out? That does happen in season 2. It's unfortunate because it is a classic. So now here we are. It is January 27th, 1976, and the Society Party has debuted. One of only 2 episodes directed by Gary Marshall himself. It was written by Bob Brunner. Now guess what Bob Brunner's known for?
He's the isn't he the Jump the Shark guy?
Yes, he is the Jump the Shark guy. He is indeed. He also came up with the nickname Fonzie for Fonz. So he contributed and he took away from Happy Days at the same time. It's just kind of amazing if you really think about it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah,
the Lord giveth and taketh away all the time. Giveth the shark jump, taketh away.
The Fonz. Yeah, it's a very what is it? Old Testament, I guess.
Reverse it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only does not only God forgive, but only God gives us the shark jump.
Yeah. Laverne and Shirley's comes, and people have 8 different versions of what the shark jump is for them. I can tell you what my version is. We will get there. We will get there in probably 7 seasons at least. But when it happens, it happens. It happens, and it's not the moment everybody thinks is the classic shark jump, the one that everybody regrets. But yeah, it happens. Trust me, it happens.
Yeah, every fandom's got one.
It is a mess. Oh yeah. No, you can get lucky. I would say there are some shows out there that never jump the shark. Psych did not jump the shark, in my opinion.
That's impressive.
Psych is perfect.
That's impressive given how long it was. But yeah, no, I mean for us, I know Burn Notice had its moment, and Ash vs. Evil Dead practically had it in the first 15 minutes, in my opinion.
Ash vs. Evil Dead was weird for me because it started so horribly. I had to watch my favorite character be flanderized into a misogynist, and then watch him bang a woman against a bathroom sink while Bruce Campbell made orgasm faces. And I'm sitting here going, why? Just why?
Just why?
Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Why, universe? But then season 3 happens, and season 3 is just a palate cleanser and a miracle, and this is what they should have been doing the whole stupid time.
Yeah, it's to be further nerdy, it's kind of like when I saw the Bumblebee movie and was like, God, we could have been having this the whole time? This is what they always could have been? How dare you? And just for those,
how long has this been going on?
and for those of us that are not familiar with us or with our interests and everything, yeah, we have a lot of varied interests, and we come from many different fandoms that we share. So tangents are going to happen. I will try to be not this bad about it.
Target most of the time.
Yeah,
we'll try to.
Anyway, please continue. You're
so let's talk about the society party. To sum it up, in this episode, Laverne and Shirley are invited by Tad Schatz to attend a society party at the Schatz mansion. High hopes having Shirley, with an eye to improving her social standing and meeting a nice society gentleman, begs Laverne into going with her. Laverne accepts, insisting that her date, Arthur the Fonzarelli, come along with them to dinner. Unfortunately, the girls don't have nice dresses and are forced to manipulate their childhood friends Lenny and Squiggy into finding them nice outfits for the Yanks. The boys come through in time for the party, but it turns out that Squiggy's Uncle Elliot, or the boys themselves, is never quite made clear in the episode. They have boosted the dresses from the apartment of one of the guests, forcing the girls to choose between their dignity and fitting in. Now, let's talk about the episode.
Yeah. I mean, so, I guess to say off the bat, I mean, as I had said to you before, I had not really had any familiarity with the show, and it was something that I think as we went along, I began to get flickers of memory, and we'll get to that episode to episode, but it's but I know with this episode, I love that it establishes so much of it's a really great first episode. It's a fantastic pilot to basically set up that world. You set up the aspects of it, and by the end of the episode you kind of know where it's going to go, and you really know if you're in or not, and I always really appreciate that.
It sinks you very nicely into this working class world of Milwaukee. And in the mid-1950s, we're in the mid-1950s. It's about 1957, I think, is the first season, and that's where it's set. I'll double-check that. But that is where it's set, and it gives you this feeling and this understanding of these girls and what they like, what their dreams are. Laverne claims she has none. We know that's BS, or we'll come to learn that's BS. Mm-hmm. And it makes you understand them, and if you don't like them, you're going to be gone, and if you love them, you're going to stay. And America stayed, and that's where we ended up with the show.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So were there, getting to revisit this episode, is there anything you got to see this time around that really kind of stood out for you that you hadn't noticed before, or do you feel like you've sort of digested this one so intensely that there's nothing new to find?
Actually, I tend to skip this one when I'm watching alone. I go to Falter at the Altar for personal shipping reasons that we will eventually get to in the background that I will not blabber on and on about. But for me, what really stands out is how there's not a lot of physical comedy in this episode. There's a little bit of physical comedy, but it's a lot more character-based for the first few episodes until the girls apparently went to Gary Marshall and said, hey, let's do physical comedy. You want to do physical comedy? So you get the one incident where Laverne accidentally knocks the ear off the statue in the punch bowl.
Yeah, which I have to say that makes me think they might have gotten a little ripped off with the quality of that statue, given that it does look like maybe it was expensive. That is, unless this high society is actually a bunch of cheapskates.
They're all brewery folks. You don't know. It's antiquity. Antiquity falls apart. You poke at it, and it falls apart. And that's what makes it classy.
God. It's like the gourmet meal, right? It's it's small and light and fragile, but it's expensive.
Gentle.
Yes.
And if you stab it, it goes away. Just a little tiny little shrimp, and all you're getting for dinner is the shrimp. Sorry.
Oh gosh. Yeah, but
feels like we'll get there.
But I definitely I agree with what you're saying. It was very banter heavy. As a film nerd, I really loved how it captured that old school screwball, kind of the more dialogue driven screwball comedy. A lot of the Howard Hawks, like Ball of Fire, or The one, it reminded me of like some of the party scenes in the early Thin Man movies at times, especially the society party scene.
You can kind of see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I haven't watched a Thin Man in 40 million years, but yeah, I remember that
yeah,
wit and the banter and the feeling of it. Yeah.
And it's like, it was cool to see it stand out because I mean, as much as I didn't watch this show when it aired in the kind of 90s era syndication, on Nick at Night and stuff like that. I was familiar with a lot of other sitcoms. I watched
that was
a lot
the golden years.
Yeah, and it because like you basically got to have like a whole night of like Bewitched, Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke, Bob Newhart, all in one night.
Yeah, Block Party Summer.
Yes.
Y'all, if any of you missed out on Block Party Summer, you missed out on a time. There were originally little skits that they would film whenever they added a new series to the Nick at Night block. And in the case of Laverne and Shirley, it was the Circle of Success. There were fake infomercials with Lenny and Squiggy trying to sell pork juicers. These clips also don't exist anywhere. So if anybody has a VHS tape, please put it on YouTube, kids.
Yes, please.
Please give us series history.
Because
we need that sweet, sweet post-canon stuff.
I have this like weird feeling in my head that's like I may have seen like one of those and actually thought it was a real infomercial because I was sick a lot as a kid, so it might have been some fever dream, and so
that's what it feels like to look at the two of them doing that.
Oh God,
I just love it. I just remember the Circle of Success, and I think Cindy and Penny were in it, and it's Laverne and Shirley helping them sell it. Like, cannot remember this entirely.
Oh man, somebody please,
little bitty things.
We beseech you, fans out there.
Give us the lore.
Yes.
Give us the lore.
The lore. The lore is the law. Yes.
Okay. Character impressions. Now, give me some character impressions. What did you think of both of the girls? What did you think of the guys? Tell me.
I absolutely adored Laverne and Shirley, like straight out the gate. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how my impression evolves. But in that first episode, I bonded to them very quickly. I love that they're clearly established, but I love the dynamic, and I love that how they have these set roles, but kind of like a good screwball comedy, and especially a good character-based comedy, there's a little bit of changing back and forth a bit. Like sometimes Shirley can be a little crafty, a little cynical to kind of get Laverne to do something, or because of her own ennui, and then Laverne can sometimes get a little soft, a little sensitive about things, and and in this episode it doesn't show up really strongly, but you can see the roots of it. I think it's a couple more episodes in, you really get more of it.
Yeah. Eventually, they will. In season 8, there's like horrible flannerization. Season 7, it happens a little too. Season 7, season 6, there's like flattening of characterization, and you kind of go, no, that's not the people that I've been watching for all these years.
Oh, jeez.
But it kind of mixes everything up as time goes on. Over like the first 6 seasons or so, you will see the two of them influencing each other as friends will do. Mm-hmm. And the two of them also, saying, hey, this is wrong, I'm right. And, they don't always adhere to Shirley's moral, now I won't say agenda, moral compass.
Yeah, I guess her stance. It's like a stance, and it's and see the mistake she made is a stance on a power stance, and with the power stance she might have been able to keep it up for longer than because I mean I was rewatching to prep for today, and I love the little bit of the vodio do, and I don't vodio do, and then finally Laverne just goes, you vodio, yeah, exactly, you vodio. And Cheryl like kind of spikes the camera, spikes the audience a little bit, and goes once. One time. Right, and it's like, hey, still counts, Cheryl, still counts.
Still counts.
And as for the boys, I mean, I've loved Michael McKean since the first time I saw him in Short Circuit 2, and that was my introduction to him because I really enjoyed the first Short Circuit, and I really enjoyed the sequel, particularly the second half of the sequel. And and so it was great to see. I mean, first of all, it was a trip to see Michael McKean so young.
He was 29 when they filmed this.
Oh God, that's kind of scary to think. I'm older now than he was when he did the show. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Back on track. But yeah, David, I wasn't familiar with, but I I think what's interesting, is you get the impression that, these two are, these wonderful supporting characters that like you see the girls kind of tolerate them in a little ways, but at the same time you also realize that there's a certain like comfortable familiarity that they're not just people you tolerate, they're people that like you still consider people Like I love that, when how they manipulate the boys, and Shirley does a little crawling up with the hand up Squiggy, and does a little boop, and and Laverne's like very awkward. It's like wah, 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 like almost like it's like a little it's a not even a crab walk. It's something super awkward. Like what's an awkward animal that would be like a penguin?
Oh gosh, yeah. I actually was thinking of a fiddler crab just doing it.
I was
prodding. More prodding. And what prodding.
Is it? Maybe it's a penguin on stilts.
I like that. Let's keep that mental image.
Let's
keep that mental image. Let's keep that mental image. Walk.
So, but yeah.
Those infamous words. I guess I get you.
Yeah. But the point though about the scene is that clearly there's enough of a rapport that they're not like too suspicious that the girls are paying attention to them, and the girls have probably had to get favors from them before. They probably have gotten rides. They probably have been like, they probably have done the whole thing where it's like, it could be my date to the party, and then they end up just wandering off to the guy they actually wanted to go with. And so I really love that element. And exactly as you're saying, it brings you into this world, and through those characters, you really see how like it's like this little neighborhood, that all together, this little community. And definitely, as you were saying for the intro, that there was a hole in the story without Lenny and Squiggy. And I mean, they absolutely, without it, I don't think this episode would have worked at all. So yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty much the fulcrum around everything turns. And that is actually a theme that continues throughout the show. This is just the first little tiny establishment of it. And eventually, at the end of it all, the girls go from basically hating them, barely stomaching them. At one point, Laverne looks at Lenny, and she tells him that Squiggy is his only friend. Within 6 seasons, she's calling him a terrific guy. He's a sweet guy. And that is like character development. There's a lot of nuance and development about how the girls feel about the boys, and how they basically go from these two dudes that they're just tolerating to they basically become pretty much their best friends, aside from the two of them with each other.
Are you saying that their friendship goes from rags to riches?
Oh.
Did that sting a little bit? Hey, you're like, I didn't sing it. I'll there's that.
Carmine doesn't start haunting the series until the next episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I love that. That was a good one, though. That was a good one. Keep that one in your back pocket.
I was thinking about it. I knew I had to drop it somewhere.
I'm glad you did. Just drop it there.
Yeah, I was going to make a movie reference, then I realized it was a really dark Battle of Algiers reference. So we'll skip that. Move on.
A lot of the shows, like recurring gags, develop in this episode. Like you get your first hello gag in this particular episode, right? In the pilots, and then it kind of fades out, and then it starts coming back in.
Right, and then also the raspberry too, as well, right?
Yes, I think the raspberry appears like a couple of times, but not all the time. There's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
Throughout after season 1, it kind of fades out.
That's a bummer. I love that.
Podio Dodo stays around. Yeah.
Nice.
Milk and Pepsi, all that stuff. It keeps them recurring. So.
Yeah.
But that is the very first door gag, and there's a great story about that where David didn't want to do the door gags because he went to Gary Marshall and he said, "Who am I saying hello to? Who the heck am I saying hello to?" He says,
"Oh my!"
Gary's answer is great, and this is why Gary Marshall was a legend. R.I.P. Mr. Marshall, wherever the heck you are. He turns to him and he goes, "Are you crazy? This is your dynamite. which immediately dates the story. This is your dynamite. Just go with it. And that's how the door gag continues to be.
Man. Speaking of recurring gags, the other thing at the very least, I'm hoping I'm not jumping ahead on like what you want to cover, but is as much as there's all this great comedy, one of the things that also sets up well in the show is in its conclusion, the bond and poignancy that seems to really define at the very least, the early, what I've seen so far of the show.
Oh yeah. Oh, that continues. That strings right all the way through the development of the characters, all the way actually into season 8. That it continues to be about their bond. It continues to be about the friendship. If without the girls' friendship, the show is nothing. Mm-hmm. And there's a great line that happens around season 4 that will make us all realize just how valuable that friendship is. And then season 8 will happen, and boy, will we realize how valuable that friendship is. But yeah, that is important to the show. It's vital to the show. That sentimentality with extreme burlesque comedy, that is the show.
Right.
That is the show at its very core.
Right. And again, that comes back to, I think, what feels like the influences of those older comedies where you would have something that could be very absurd and very ridiculous, and then something very sweet and very poignant. And like, there's a certain platonic romanticism to it between the two of them. Yeah. Like, because it's and it kind of reminds me in some ways of like, obviously, another show that was around at the time was The Odd Couple, and how like when I finally went back to Neil Simon's original film adaptation of that story, was realizing there is this closeness that people can get, and that's what I love with Laverne and Shirley is like it's almost in some ways it's different than a sisterhood, but it's more than just friendship.
Yeah, it's found family. It's
basically
the two of them and the boys, and even Carmine and Laverne's dad and Edna. Yeah. Basically, they all become each other's family over time, and that's basically what the show is about in the end.
Yeah,
so, and when it starts losing that, that's when it.
Gotcha.
That's when it happens, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. That's so sad. At the very least, we're going to have a good run until then, at least, because found family, friend family is like one of my favorite genres of ensemble stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how I got. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it's all the good stuff.
That's how I ended up with Burn Notice. That's how I started to watch Burn Notice, because of the found family element. Without the found family element, that show again is nothing, and that's our whole different problem they have.
God, yeah. Oh yeah. No. That's
we went through that one. That was just a long, slow slog, like watching somebody be dragged to death. So,
oh God.
Anyway,
thanks, Matt Nix. No, we'll get on one of my.
The reason why you haven't had a hit series since Matt Nix.
Oh God. Yeah, I'll get you on one of my shows, on one of my Let's Plays or something. We'll just spend the entire like half hour ranting about Burn Notice.
There's a reason why Matt Nix hasn't had a hit television series yet since that day, and there's a reason why the How I Met Your Mother guys haven't had a hit series since that day.
Oh, that's a good burn there too. Yeah, that's a good sizzle. Good sizzle.
Off your audience, they disappeared. Gee, I wonder what happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the show.
back to the society party. Yeah.
Now you'll notice that Cindy Williams has a New York accent. She has this New York accent for I think the first 6 episodes, and then it stops because Gary Marshall told her to stop. The accent was not good. It was distracting. Yeah. So, did you find it distracting? I like asking people that.
I did and I didn't, and part of that is because I watch so many Grindhouse movies with really crappy accents anyway. I mean, I've seen, and I watch Italian Grindhouse movies with those crappy dubs. I mean, I watch like Police Otteci movies. And when you watch Italo crime movies, I mean, you're dealing with oh boy, that's golden dubs there. So. It is distracting in the sense that it adds an extra level of intensity and grit to Shirley that doesn't match the character for me. I think
it's like when she leaves the party and she says, "I can tell, honey." That is not a Shirley line. That is not a Shirley. As we get deeper, but even by season 2, that is not a line for her that she would ever dream of being that forward.
Right.
It becomes Laverne's job to do that and be sassy and forthwith.
Right. I mean,
she's not that forthwith.
I can see Shirley like getting to that point of being able to say that at some other later point. But yeah, it's like it's interesting. Yeah, there's that sort of there's a little more agency, or I guess more of a I don't know, a snark response that just it's weird. It wasn't terribly distracting. I found it more distracting. I want to say I think it was in the following episode, which we'll get to. But
that'll be next. We're coming to it.
Yep.
So this episode establishes Laverne dating the Fonz, which happened in Happy Days. They did more than date in Happy Days. But we're going to pretend that didn't happen for the show, because she directly says in a few episodes, I have earned the right to wear whites, and not in Happy Days universe. So what did you think about their quasi-relationship? What did you think about, how did he fit into this universe?
That's an interesting, okay, good question. Because I watched a lot of Happy Days. I watched probably at least 3 seasons worth, probably more. And I never really saw the Fonz as a guy that would have a girlfriend. He was a guy who dated. And so that rapport felt weird. Because it's just, I mean, and again, this is just one of those, like, depends on the background you come from, the circles you're around. That's like, you don't just casually like snuggle and kiss somebody that you're not dating, or that you haven't, like, it's like if you just date a lot of different people, you just don't do that when it's like not your date. Like when it's your date, when it's like that designated time, then it's like, oh, bets are off. You can be doing the bum and grind, a little groping, why not? Because hey, it's your moment. But it was strange. And in general, also what was interesting was how I noticed that was kind of the cool thing at the end credits. There's that promo that says, hey, we're coming back on the next episode, and with the cake, and that
the cake is so good.
It's yes, it is. It feels like that feels like a Happy Days kind of corniness, and yet the way that he interacts with Laverne doesn't feel like Happy Days, and it also doesn't kind of feel like Laverne and what Laverne and Shirley was going to become. So it's a strange, like, it feels like not even necessarily a first draft. I guess it's like it's okay to bring up another show, and I apologize for this. People can look this one up. It is like the character designs of the pilot for Steven Universe. You can see they're not quite there yet. It would have been a cool show still with that look. But it's not there yet.
It needs to be baked more. It's cookie dough. It's not the cookie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like cookie dough's fine, but but you need to be warm and melting in your mouth and stuff.
Yeah. Just don't burn the roof of your mouth on anything. That's what's interesting. Fonzie will be back next episode. He comes back in season 2. He pops back up in one more crossover episode, I think in season 5. Season 5, Shotgun Wedding, which is that season's premiere. And the girls cross over to Happy Days twice. No one mentioned that. The weird thing about this, about the way they set it up and about the relationship, is that they seem to acknowledge the fact that they were dating and they were together and they did all this. They don't they weren't the same girls. They definitely aren't the same girls. We need to actually, at the end of all this, we need to go back and watch the Happy Days episode so you can be amazed at the difference between it. Between this characterization is like astounding. It's like 2 different sets of women.
Right. I mean, I'm willing to bet it's
Laverne is more Laverne.
Right. I'm wondering if I may have even seen the episode and I don't remember. It's like I didn't make the connection that it was those two. I mean, I have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. In a way, you almost wouldn't, though. Like I said, Laverne is very Laverne in it, just a little bit more than what she ends up being in the show. Just that's how I would put it. It's like a little extra layer, and then they had to soften them because 1970s. Let's soften them up a little bit, so because nobody would ever root for them.
It's like they took the liqueur. They took the liquor out of the liqueur cake, so it's just an almond cake now. That's all it is.
They basically just started serving everybody Arnold Palmers after serving them Long Island iced teas.
Right.
That's basically the good comparison. That's your comparison. It's Long Island iced teas versus Arnold Palmer's. That's what it's like. The difference in characterization.
Nice. Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else we want to cover on this episode? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I did have one good question now. I actually asked this when we were watching this episode on a live tweet festival that we have every once in a while with folks from the Shots Brewery Facebook.
Hey.
Shout out to Ashley. And I posted this poll, and the question is, who the heck did boost those dresses? Did the boys break into the apartment, or was it Uncle Elliot? Now, what do you think?
I think it was Uncle Elliot, simply because I think Lenny and Squig are so delightfully dumb that they would have admitted to have stealing them.
Yeah, you'll see examples of them trying to lie later in the series, and
that's
Lenny in particular cannot lie. He sucks at lying.
Because I guess what I mean is like the establishment of those characters, they are so like loud and blunt that with the girls in particular, I would completely expect them to say, it's like, yeah, you needed some fancy dresses, we got you fancy dresses, don't ask about it. You know.
Yeah.
That would be kind of their way of putting it. Or it's like, it's like, don't worry, they're not going to be missed. We just need to make them back by Monday. Yeah. That would be more. And that's the other thing, having to return them by Monday or by Sunday night or whatever. I think it's like Monday morning, I think, before the wax museum opens. Morning. Right. That seems more like, okay, the uncle did it and was dishonest about it, and that's why he's like, and he figures, they're boosted anyway. If they don't get returned, then I'm not going to get caught with them.
Yeah. Ultimately, they're lucky that doesn't go back in a circle and get bored. That would be like even deeper plotting that we never get to.
I mean, no. That's a Guy Ritchie movie, third act. That's not happening here.
Lenny and Squiggy, hard boiled. You need to see that Saturday Night Live sketch.
I do. You were telling me about that.
Yes, where it's the Sweat Hogs versus them, and they're all drug dealers, and it's hilarious. It is hilarious. It's impossible to get. It's nowhere because of NBC. Oh man.
Right.
And
oh yeah.
NBC doesn't even have it. Yeah.
Yeah, they love to make sure that you don't think about how bad the new Saturday Night Live is by making sure you never can see the old Saturday Night Live. And yeah, I said it. I'm not taking it back.
Well, to be fair to them, they have, I think, the first 2 seasons up on Hulu, or is it not? They're promising the whole thing on the NBC app. Which, we'll see. It's like CBS putting the entirety of Happy Days up and then not putting the show up at all. So I have no place to recommend this show for streaming. No place. It is not available legally anywhere.
Right, because it's like you can find little fragments or an episode here or there, or maybe like a handful of episodes, but they're not in the most strictly speaking legal fashion to do so. Which is like
there are illegal torrents and nothing else, or you watch the show on Logo, and Logo's scheduling and editing is interesting.
Oh God, yeah, I've been watching it. I've been following your live tweets of a couple of those, and those are they chop so much out.
Stop cutting off my tag scenes, Logo. You can hear me.
God. It's television.
At the very end of the show, at this particular episode, we get a couple of signature little moments for the girls. Shirley gets to sing High Hopes for the first time, which becomes a recurrent theme for her.
That is adorable.
Which I think was interesting. They actually paid for the rights for that song.
Yeah.
And they continue to, I think, throughout the DVD releases because it keeps coming back as a recurrent theme for her. What do you think about that? The ultimate cynic versus optimist? Because I think one of the more touching lines ever in the show is Shirley just going, "I dream for you too." Yeah. Which is what she says in this episode. I dream for you too.
Yeah, and okay, since you know me, I have to explain this then to the folks at home. I am very much an optimist. I'm an idealist to a sometimes dorky, silly, naive, and childish degree. I know this. I admit it. It can be a little frustrating to deal with sometimes, but it also what I loved about this scene, and I liked about that, and how I feel it works is.
Yeah.
I know a lot of cynics. I know a lot of pessimists. I know realists that are actually pessimists in disguise. My buddy Rick, I kind of called him out on being a pessimist. He said, "No, I'm a realist." And like, I think a few years later, I don't know if he actually like outright admitted it, but I think he began to realize, yeah, I think I'm taking things a little too pessimistically. I'm going to stop that. And I love that type of development. I think that's a very powerful relationship because I think it helps both parties balance each other out. Yeah. And that's why I love about how it balances them out in the show, because it's good comedy, especially character-based comedy. I really feel is like it's tightrope and balance. It's like juggling, I guess, in some respects, because you're trying to maintain a certain degree of realism with absurdity, and you're trying to manage, these different emotions, and you're trying to manage perspective, and you have them, the perspectives of the party and how it goes and how it poorly goes, and that you have someone who is not going to give up looking forward, and you have someone who is not going to give up or doesn't want to give up looking down, and both of them meet in the middle. I feel like
exactly. And they just encourage each other to jump through the hoops, go through the fire, and get to the other end.
Right.
And that's ultimately there's a very interesting line that happens where there's a really good episode like in season 4 where everybody gets psychoanalyzed. It's called Testing. And Laverne says that she is an adjuster. When the crap comes her way, she tries to make the best out of it. And Shirley, meanwhile, is crafting this fantasy world for herself with her collie and her doctor husband and her kids and her suburban home. And she doesn't know what it's actually going to be like when she gets there. So that's that balancing act. That's the balancing act right there. Yeah. That's what we do.
That's really good. And hearing that analysis makes me very terrified of the realization of, oh God, I am Shirley. I am Shirley, and Shirley is me. Well, you know what? I'm Ben Wyatt too, and Ben Wyatt is me.
That's who I am. I know who I am. Shout out to Becky once again. In my friendship with my best friend, I'm the Laverne, and I know I'm the Laverne, and I will always be the Laverne, and she is the Shirley. So I think I'm a lot of people's Laverne.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're one of my best friends, and Laverne is my favorite character on the show.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That tracks. Okay.
There's a line. There's a through line. Okay, so now, what would you give this? Like, I don't know. You want to do star rankings, or what would you put this on a scale like of 1 to 10?
A 1 to 10. I'd put this at a pretty solid 9, I'd say, just because it does such a great job of putting pieces together. Now, mind you, I'm someone who ranks things pretty highly anyway to begin with, because it establishes everything really well. It works, I think, nicely as a standalone piece. I mean, you easily could actually take the premise of this episode and all the characters, and you could easily make a feature out of a really enjoyable feature film out of this, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that to me is a sign of a great television episode, because works great as part of a series, and it works as a standalone as well. And everything's balanced. Most of the balance is really good. The only notches to take down is they're still figuring some stuff out. Some of the costumes at the society party felt a little anachronistic, even for because it's a 70s TV show, and I think all 70s TV was pretty anachronistic, even the stuff that was contemporary for its time.
Yeah. Look, we're gonna get into anachronisms. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. Wait for it. We get a whole time jump somewhere in here too. But we'll get to that too. And it just gets.
Yeah. Oh, and that's why for our project that we were working on, I was like, okay, if it's gonna go forward in time, I got to figure out something to do that's different. But that's a different conversation for a different show.
Yeah. It's all about just trying to lay out the puzzle pieces. For me, this is about a 7.
Yeah. Okay.
Great establishment, great work with characters, good script, really good script. Like, for me, you could not do any better in describing those girls with that exchange right in the middle where they talk about what men expect from them. What should they expect out of life? Laverne just wants some laughs. Shirley has dreams. She's going to dream bigger. So there are two really, really, really great scenes in here that just set in concrete who these women are and give you the expectation of who they will become in the future or will not become in the future, so to speak. Great stuff by Henry Winkler, as always. Hats off to Henry Winkler, who just is the Fonz, just embodies this character and is just effortlessly cool. No matter what, wherever you just plunk down the Fonz, he will be the Fonz and will work and will spin everything around him.
You could toss him into a horror film and he'd make the monster like, okay, I'm going to go home now. He'd be like, hey, you're killing everybody around here. What are you doing? Go home. Go home to your mother. And they just walk away.
Insert Scream reference here. Follow. You know that in Scary Movie, by the way, David does show up playing Principal Squiggy. This happens. This really happens.
I did not realize that. I wasn't familiar enough. In the first, we're talking in the first Scary Movie?
Just the first one. Just the first Scary Movie.
Oh my gosh.
That's
and also, okay. I'm a bad Wes Craven fan. I forgot you were mentioning Henry Winkler, Scream reference, and then bam, the principal. Shoot.
Yep.
Oh,
that's him.
Because I always remember that scene for the cameo with Wes in the Freddy outfit. That's
that's great. That's a good one. That is a good moment. I just love that. I love that movie series anyway, but that's what stands out to me too.
Nice.
Yeah, that is about where I would rank it. For me, I would eliminate that horrifying New York accent that Cindy's doing. But she knew. I could call it that because she knew, and they knew, and they got rid of it. I maybe would have done a little bit more with the boys, but there's also a good establishment for the two of them. I would have maybe had Frank hanging around, but he also gets a lot of good establishment in the second episode. So I don't know if there would be too much I would change because it pretty much, you're right, that it sets everything in concrete, and it just, it's very good.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's about a 7 for me.
Okay. Speaking of being able to finally nitpick a little bit, I would probably boost the dialogue from the high society people a little bit because they were a little cartoonish, and it kind of the catch is like it's treated a little too realistically. Like the awkward is very realistic, but their personalities are a bit too over the top. So it's like it's that balancing act that I felt that later episodes when they dealt with people like in 2 episodes from now, the snobbery I felt was handled better, say there, and how both the snobbery is very nonchalant and the reaction is very funny and over the top, but also very natural.
Well, this becomes a running theme throughout the show, the girls versus snobs. There's some episodes that handle it perfectly, and there are some where they're just like cardboard cutouts that are people just throwing darts at. So it depends on the episode when it comes to how like the show's portrayal of class disparity is portrayed. And just like, when you think about this show, people call it like a boomer show. This is a boomer show, boomer values. And no, it is not. This show has so much to say about class differences. It's got so much to say about feminism in its awkward 70s way. We will get to its embattled feminism in future seasons. It's got so much to say. Everybody's a proud member of a union in this universe. It's got it's blue collar and it's honest about its roots and just it's not like boomer. I just my ears close whenever I hear that term attached to this show. Contemporary ears, there are going to be some problems, and we'll address those problems. But it's got a lot to say to modern generation, and CBS, you're depriving them of it. CBS, put it on streaming. CBS, stop making people chase down DVDs or poorly edited reruns on Logo, where you get half the tag scene. Give us our juice, so to speak.
Yep. Gotta give us the juice, man. Give us the good stuff. But yeah, I mean, it feels, yeah, I think it was really good. It was a good episode. It definitely was like, cause I was a little nervous, to be honest. I mean, when you pulled me into this, and I was like, oh man, like, I mean, it's like, you showed me a couple of clips. I was like, okay, like this is cute. I like it, and I'd seen, excuse me, like some of the retweets and stuff like that. And, this put me completely at ease. Like within like the first like 10 minutes, I was smiling and laughing and was just like, okay, cool. This is going to be fun. And, it'll be an adventure. And so it definitely, it was a good way. It was a good introduction. And, as someone who was, a little skeptical, I'll admit, it brought me into the fold and made me feel very welcome and comfortable watching this first episode.
I have like a little pack of episodes that I show to anybody who wants to watch it for the first time, just to drag them on in. If I had to recommend any 4 episodes, I would say probably start with Society Party. I would tell them to watch Look Before You Leap. Watch Look Before You Leap, kids. Watch it. You have to. Best episode of the show. Best dramatic episode of the show. Gotta watch it. I would show them either Stepping Out or Honeymoon Hotel, which combines slapstick with feeling and the gang all working together as a team. And I'd probably show them Sing, Sing, Sing for purely shallow reasons that we'll get to. Purely shallow reasons, we'll get to them. But that would be my starter pack. And if you can get past Stepping Out without being into the show, it's not a show for you. But if you got hooked to the pilot, I didn't know if you would be into it as we continue to go along. But I'm glad you are. Yeah,
it's a good time. Cool. So I guess that is it for now. Yeah. Cool. So I guess we'll be coming back with the next episode. And what do you want to prep anyone for what is to be seen? I mean, I have my way of how I prep them, but I don't know how much I want to say.
It's called The Bachelor Party. We get more Fonz. We get a cake from which Shirley will be forced to emerge from. And we get Carmine. This is our very first Carmine episode. And we get introduced to Frank. So we'll meet you there at the end of the rainbow there, kids.
Yeah. And make sure to, make sure if you liked this episode, make sure to follow us on social media. We are on Twitter, on Facebook. You set up the Tumblr as well, right?
Yes. We are at Night After Night PC, or Night After Night Pod. Night After Night Pod on Facebook, on Tumblr, and on YouTube. And I think on our other audio social medias. We are also at Night After Night Pod on WordPress. And we are at...
Yeah, there's the Patreon. What's the Patreon?
Patreon is Night After Night Pod.
Okay.
And our Twitter is Night After Night PC, NIGHT Night PC.
Gotcha. That's right. Yeah.
Join our Twitter. We have fun.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, the live tweets have been hilarious. I don't log in to cover those because I just sit on the sidelines. It's like, yeah, that's great. But they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I toss out little bits of little interesting tidbits and little old clips and
oh god, yeah.
Sometimes screen grabs, sometimes other things. Come join us, have fun.
Yes.
Enjoy yourselves.
Yes.
The party.
It's a good time.
Celebration.
Hey, it's a party, and if it gets big enough, maybe there will be a society of Laverne and Shirley fans.
Come. That's it. Enjoy us next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.